Thank you, Vinnie, for having me this morning. Delighted to be with you. It's been quite a while since we last exchanged, so I'm excited to bring that update on Aera. So I'm Fred Laluyaux. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Aera Technology. We're based here in San Francisco and in Mountain View. We started working on that project and that company about 7.5 years ago. I think we launched Aera in June 2017. And I'm excited to tell you about what we do. Just a quick word on my background. Prior to building Aera, I built a company called Analyst in the data modeling space. Prior to that, my career took me through SAP, business subjects, and I basically spent the last 27, 28 years in the world of data analytics applications, ERP, BI, and of course, AI. So super happy to be with you and give you the quick update on Aera.
I'm excited to have you. I know we've talked periodically over the last 7 years, but you made a lot of progress. Thank you for this update.
My pleasure. Delighted to deliver it to you. So just going back a little bit, why did we build Aera? Why did we start from scratch and said, okay, we need to build this technology? When we launched the company, we talked about welcome to the self-driving enterprise. People called us a little crazy because that was way before the wave of AI and automation. But we felt that the market was going to evolve toward what we deliver today, and I think it did. So why did we launch the company? It goes back to when I was at SAP in 2010. I wrote a paper about what Aera is today. So it goes back a long time ago. We didn't fumble on that idea. We didn't pivot to that idea. It is very, very intentional. And this was driven by an understanding that the digitization of our economy was going to drive three things. Going to drive an acceleration of the business cycle. The speed at which you need to make decisions to remain competitive is dramatically accelerated. It's going to drive a granularization of the economy, pushing decisions at a much finer grain, at a much lower level of granularity, and driving more complexity as you're thinking throughout the value chain and the entire ecosystem has gone a lot more complex. And we knew, or we believed, I should say, instead of we knew, but need a bit of conviction when you start a company like this, that the solution had to be built from the ground up at the intersection of data and analytics, AI, and automation. And it's really what Aera is all about. We built the first self-service SaaS platform for decision intelligence. So I mentioned when we started that decision intelligence category didn't exist. It really came to life in the last 2 to 3 years with a big acceleration right now. And I included the definition from Gartner what decision intelligence is. And it's a discipline. It's not just the technology, that advanced decision making by explicitly understanding and engineering how decisions are made, how outcomes are evaluated, managed, and improved by feedback. So we'll unpile that as we present. But we agree with the definition.
I'm glad you haven't rebranded yourself as Gen AI like everybody else.
If you look at the way most analysts break AI, you have multiple subcategories, right? Gen AI is one of them. Yeah. And we are leveraging a lot of agentic and LLM in our platform, of course. Composite AI, another one. And decision intelligence is a very important subcategory of AI. It brings everything together. So we'll talk about it in a minute. Yeah, but it's we try to stay away from buzzwords. It kind of we don't need to. This is what we do, and the value we'll discuss. We don't need to try to hype things up. I think they're big enough as they are. So our vision that we explained when we launched the company, we had a video that we used to really explain where we were going. It's to move from people making and executing decisions supported by machines. What I mean by machines, it's data, collaboration platform, applications, but really with the humans getting the information, given the capabilities to simulate, to predict, to do all this stuff, but manually making and executing decisions and working in silos to a world where, and we are there today, where machines are now capable of making and executing decisions but guided by people. So it's really the concept of automation, but instead of automating how you're manufacturing a product in a production line, we're automating the decision-making processes that runs the enterprise. Okay, so I'll break this down. And when you think about decisions here, there's really two types. The first type is structured decisions. Decisions that are happening hundreds or thousands of times a day or a week, a month, that can be structured around a playbook and a set of rules and a process. And you have situational decisions that happen on the fly when you need to collaborate, do a simulation, answer a question. So our journey really started with the structured decisions. This is what we've tackled with some of the largest companies in the world, with the idea of how do we automate the decision-making and execution processes for the structured decisions, and really take the human out of the loop, move to a world where 90-100% of a specific type of decisions can be made with the system. By the way, I'll pause here on one point. Right? I add something to that point. If you think about my intro and I talk about the digital driving and acceleration, well, it's actually got a little further than we initially thought. Digital is also creating new types of decisions that cannot be made by humans. So we didn't anticipate that when we launched. We thought, oh, we're going to take the decisions you're currently making and automate them. But what we're seeing right now is that speed has gotten to such a level, the fact that we're connecting decisions across the value chain. You could put 1,000 very well-trained humans behind a big control room full of screens. They could not execute what we can do with Aera today. I'll give you some example of that. But this is really important, is the emergence of new types of decisions that are connecting dots that have not been connected before. But this is where the incremental value gets generated. So we talk about the human out of the loop. Of course, decisions cannot always be automated, and you might want to set some business rules to bring the human to validate, to confirm, or to bring input into the decision-making process. Think about the system as delivering the recommendation and you looking at the recommendation and decided to accept it, to reject it, to modify it. We call that the human on the loop. And of course, what we've announced at our conference a few weeks back is the fact that now Aera is extended to the human in the loop, giving our customers the ability to leverage the data that sits in Aera, the intelligence, the beautiful engagement model to generate decisions on their own and to take action on their own through a single interface, right? So I'll talk about that in a minute. So full spectrum of decisions, automated to manual. Go ahead.
What's the functional focus? Because there's a lot of people who just go after finance or HR. I think SAP, the ERP world, tends to be much more back office focused. What is your focus?
So it's a very good question. We started and we still are heavily focused on supply chain, manufacturing, the hard stuff. Why did we pick the hard stuff first? It's because, to me, that's the part of an organization that is being the most impacted by the acceleration, the granularization, and the complexification of decisions. If you think about finance, you still close your book once a month. You still plan on a cycle. When you look at supply chain, we're now with some of our customers, Unilever being one of them, they're driving a demand forecast at the store SKU level based on point of sell out data. So they are ingesting the POS data from the largest retailers in the world, and they're calculating that on a daily basis. So think about the illustration of what I just said: complexity, volume, and of course we're leveraging machine learning, advanced machine learning for that. So complexity, volume, and real time. They're refreshing that on a daily basis. So that's where I think it made a lot of sense to start in supply chain. But of course, the platform that I'll describe in a few minutes is a SaaS self-service platform, and our customers deploy this capability across the value chain. They deploy it in finance, they deploy it in sales, they deploy it in revenue management, they deploy it in procurement. But for us, the entry point remains the office of the Chief Supply Chain Officer.
Well, Fred, I don't want to distract you too much, but there's so many vertical edge applications that are waiting to be explored. So over time, I hope you look at them. I have just released a book. It's a fiction book, and the fictional company is Polestar. They define a vertical as every occupation. The Bureau of Labor Statistics has 800 occupations. So this company uses agentic AI and humanoid robots technologies together for each occupation. So think about the verticalization that in the next few years, we're going to see. Mine is a fictional company, but I know companies that are already headed that way.
Yeah. It's happening everywhere. One of our largest customers is deploying Aera to digitize 80, it's a $100 billion company. It's not a small business. 85% of supply chain decisions by the end of 2025. They started about a year ago, so 2 years. The goal is very clear. Supply chain for them is a competitive differentiator. COVID taught them that. They need to digitize. And I hear all the time, I have X hundreds or thousands of planners. It's not that they're not good. They're brilliant. They're very experienced, but they cannot plan anymore because the speed is such that it's impossible to cope. So we have to come with the support. The comments that I love from our conference, user conference about a few weeks back, is like Era gives oxygen to the users. That was coming from George Chettigan at JD Irving. He says, Era gives oxygen to the users because it actually
what a great quote. Yeah.
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I think it's the quote of the conference. There was a lot of good quotes. Our friend Ray Wong was also there, and he had a lot of good quotes, but I think that one beat Ray.
Ray is a madman.
Absolutely. Actually, the quick story I told at the conference is that I sat down with Ray in late 2016. We ended up meeting in London, and I was like, I'm thinking about doing this crazy project. What do you think? We'd been working together for years. And he's like, yeah, that's completely mad, but you need a madman to take a mad project on, and if off we went. I have to say that over
I
the
would
years,
like to put Ray and Jim Cramer in the same room and see
oh,
and measure how many words per minute each one of them does. They're
yeah,
both
yeah,
crazy.
I would agree with that. That would be quite fun. I think Ray is going to win. I put my bet on Ray. Anyway, going back to the discussion here, this is the framework, and I'm going to go and give examples and explain how it works. So, as I explained, the decision intelligence category is really emerging fast. It's a subcategory of AI, along with Gen AI, composite AI, and so on and so forth. But it's really now we're moving from the first 2 years when you launch this kind of companies, you are evangelizing the vision. This is why you need to digitize decisions in supply chain and beyond. And the market is now moving toward us saying, we don't explain why, we got it. We understand why. And we have a good friend, the Harvard Business School professor is also on our board called Joe Fuller, who says companies have moved from fear of missing out, so FOMO, to COMO, certainty of missing out. And we're seeing this in the market right now, from fear to certainty. Fear you can manage, certainty you have to do something. So we're excited about what's happening in the market. Our friends at Gartner are putting the maturity for DI within the next couple of years. So we see it right now, which is great, and it's took a long time. It always takes longer than I want to, but it's happening, and it's very, very exciting. So I mentioned some of our customers. There are all these videos on our website. I could go on for hours on this, but we started with very large organizations by design, the most advanced organizations in supply chain. You look at the Dells of the world, the Unilevers of the world, Philip Morris, Merck. There are companies that are ranked always at the top of the most advanced supply chains. And my view was, I'm going to go after the most advanced company and see if DI, go back a few years, we were experimenting, can truly deliver value to the best companies. It's easy to deliver value to the laggards, but if you deliver value and massive value to the front runners, first of all, you learn more, you work with the best people, and then of course you incorporate those learnings in the technology, and you can start expand. So that's been our journey. It's a bit unusual, but to give you a sense, we shared those numbers at our conference. 25 million decisions have been digitized on Aera this year alone. That's kind of a number. We loaded in our platform more than 1.3 trillion rows of data last quarter. It's going to be a lot more this quarter. So we got to a level of scale by working with those amazing customers who trusted us. with this very ambitious vision and very ambitious project. So there's a lot more information, a lot of videos on our website if the viewers want to learn more about it. But we've reached a level of scale that is quite significant. So when we launched the company, I had two goals. Number one, how do I enable the digitization of decision making?
So Fred, you said 25 million decisions. Your decisions are not simplistic decisions, right? It's not just a yes, no decision. These are complex optimization, allocation type decisions.
This is a very good question because I want to say yes and no. Some decisions are actually heuristics. We do some work, a lot of work on master data management. It's not that intellectually complicated. You analyze a drift in a lead time and you say, that number seems off, let's correct it. That's a decision. It's not that complicated. All the way down to, I think I may have mentioned, doing some demand forecast using advanced machine learning at the store SKU location on a daily basis, doing some very complex optimizations. There was an article, I think, on Forbes about what Mars is doing, and they build the algorithm. They're running it in Aera for order rebalancing, available to promise. So you're right, but I don't want people to think that you have to only deploy Aera for the most advanced and complex decision. You can also deploy it for fairly simple decisions that need to be made at the right level of granularity. So you can understand them very well, but you can't execute them. Or it's very hard to, so we cover both part of the spectrum. And I'm mentioning that because when you think about adoption, in the early days of Aera, customers would come to us and say, you're an AI company. I'm going to give you the most complex problem, the most complex optimization problem, and see what you can do. Of course, we can deliver. The challenge with that is adoption, because if you start taking very complex decisions, the system will break it down. But if I have an optimizer process in the middle, explaining why Aera will tell you number 7 versus number 12 becomes very difficult. So we always recommend take decisions that have a good level of complexity and high velocity to start with. Build the confidence with the users, and then start going after the most corner cases that you can think of. So on this slide, I'm trying to illustrate, really, as I said before, I had two intentions. The first one is, how do we enable these very advanced companies to digitize decision making? First, it was, oh, wow, we've got 1,000 decisions that have been executed. And then we had a target for 1 million Aera accepted recommendations. And now we're at 25, projection next year is about 100 million decisions will be executed and accepted by the users, either automatically or through this process that I'll describe in a minute. So that's very hard to do, and I'll describe how we do it. The second pet peeve of mine was, I want a system that engages with the users with a consumer grade quality. I want a system that learns how users work, and not a system that the users have to learn how to work with. So we designed Aera. Why is Aera called Aera? Because it's like Siri or Alexa. Way before the concept of agents and agentic, we launched Aera as a talking machine, as a machine that used natural language to engage with the users. And that was 7 years back. I remember doing the first demos, prototype, saying, Aera engages with you. That's way before copilots and all this great stuff. We designed it as an agent. And it's working. So we talk about an agent that has 4 main capabilities. It understands how your business works. It understands your supply chain. It understands the lineages. It answers your questions. How, everything happens through this chat capability. That's quite wonderful. Second is it delivers recommendations. So the system will continuously monitor your data. I'll explain the process in a second. And either on schedule or on event, we'll say there is an opportunity to perform better here or to avoid a problem. And I'm going to create a recommendation and deliver it to either an automation rule or a user. So Aera comes to you in an inbox with messages, just like I could go to you and say, Vinnie, here is my recommendation. You say, what's the title? What is the context? Give me all the details. I want to know everything. Okay, it's all there. Aera will take action. So if you say, let's do it, the system will execute the decision back into your transactional system. It will create an STO. It will change your forecast. It will update your master data. It will update your plans. It understands, it recommends, it acts. The last piece, which is fundamental, is it learns. It learns from every decision made. So big part of the vision was we're keep talking about better decision making, but the problem, Vinnie, is we don't capture decisions. There's not an object in an ERP, there's not an object in a BI tool that is the decision. The decision is stuck in people's mind. So I wanted to put together a system that would capture the decisions in order to improve the quality and the velocity of the decisions.
And
So that's what we built.
and like it say, you can then measure, did people act on it or not act on it, right?
Oh, it's what you just described is part of what we call the control room. It's a feature in the platform. In real time, you monitor the data coming in, the intelligence being deployed, the volume of recommendation, their impact by cash, cost, service level, carbon, whatever dimension you want. Is there a bottleneck somewhere? Is the quality of data degrading? Is the quality of the algorithm increasing? Why? Why are people rejecting some recommendations? They may have a very good reason to do so. All of that is part of the Aera platform. So part of that engagement model, it's very important. It was literally, we worked everything toward being one click away from action, one click away. So we've designed this pretty slick, I like it, but maybe I'm a bit biased, user interface where you log in. I'm super happy to do a demo, but we don't have the time today, but you have to see it to believe it. You log in, you can ask your questions, get your answers, or you access the different skills, whether it's, you can see some example on the screen, and there, immediately I get access to my recommendations that I need to take action on. I have access to the control room. I can do my simulation. It's all in one single environment. So we've put a lot of work and effort into that, and it's really, we really like the results. So how I'm going to break this down because from this homepage, sorry, I've been jumping a bit. From this homepage, the control room gives me access to the full understanding of what's happening in my remit or the entire company. How many decisions are made, as I explained. I can go and do my simulations. My situational decisions can be made right there. If I type a question, Aera is not just going to give you an answer. Aera is going to go and automatically configure the discovery capability or the calc, which is the multidimensional engine. It's going to pre-configure it for you and say, here's the answer. And then you can say, oh, I'm going to change this, I'm going to change that. So when we talk about self-service business intelligence, you have talked about this for years, as long as I have. I'd never really seen it, but now we have it. So the multi-agent capability that we built and that's running in the platform literally knows how to understand your question, where to find the answer, analyze the structure of the answer, populate the data in the tool, and present the results to you. So when I talk about self-service analytics and the ability to do the same thing with a simulation, Aera, I want to simulate an increase of 10% of this by that over the next 3 years. The system will pre-configure the calc engine and show it back to you. So that's a very important part of the value of Aera. But I'm going to drill down on, you see that number 115 open? It means that right now I've got 115 recommendations waiting for me. So how did Aera do that? This is the process that Aera goes through. The first is, if you want to have decisions made digitally, you need 100%, not 99%, 100% of the information that is required to make that decision to be available in a normalized data model that the intelligence can point to. So that the next question is, how do you do that? Because my company has 17 different ERPs and WMS and different systems and internal and external data and documents. Well, that's been years of development. We have several patents on that process, but we built a crawling technology that is able to bring into the data model that Aera, that is proprietary to Aera, the diffs. Every time something changes that's relevant in your ERP, Aera will be able to push that change into the data model. It can be a lot of data, it can be a small amount of data. So big story here, but we're integrating with the largest companies in the world. We are, I think one of our clients integrates 46 different data sources into the system. And the data gets harmonized and augmented in that decision data model. It's get analyzed through the master data capabilities to see whether not only the completeness, but the quality of the data is good. If there is a reclassification that's required, if there is a drift that's been analyzed, the system will automatically make those adjustments. Now, of course, you're in full control. So the DDM is the core. Now, the next step when you're doing this decision intelligence, you need to be able to, and you mentioned that earlier.
So, Fred, do you partner with some firms to do the ETL and the data quality? And no,
it's all Aera.
Okay.
If you have your own ETL, if you have your own stuff, you can use it. But Vinnie, I've been doing this for a very long time, and I'm still very surprised by how bad. I mean, every first engagement with IT starts with our data is bad, and I got tired of it, right? So now let me tell you what we've done that's a little special and why we can bring that level of intelligence and speed to this process. You talked about supply chain. Aera has mapped, as a company, we have the ontology, we have mapped every single field of every single ERP that our customers are using. So we know that in SAP EKKO underscore EKTO, that the column D is a ship to, that the column F is a quantity, that the column D is a date. We know that. So once you know that, and you know the structure of the receiving model, you can build some intelligence. You can build some rules. You can build some, you can bring a level of, and that's what the ETL's tools are supposed to give you, but they don't give you because they don't have the content. We have the content as well as the intelligent capabilities. So that's how we make it work. But give you an idea, to build Aera on top of a new environment, we have a test drive. It's 2 weeks. From deploying Aera to answering questions, we say 2 weeks, but it's actually the technical part is a lot less than that.
Yeah.
Now, if you have Z tables in your SAP, if you have custom systems, then you need to build the mapping manually. So that happens. But for the majority of the systems that are driving enterprises today, Oracle, SAP, and so on and so forth, we have done the work. And we keep extending, of course. And then, of course, we have additional capabilities. You can connect to your data lake, your Snowflake. It doesn't matter. But the core is the ERP. And the important thing for us is the bi-directional connection, because the system will write back into those tools too, which is a process. But let me break it down to the 4 pillars. I've just talked about the data. The second is the intelligence. And the intelligence is the ability to orchestrate a decision. So there's the decision logic. I talked about structured decisions, but I need to project, to predict, to allocate, to optimize, to do all this stuff, to translate a PDF into structured data through an agent. And all of that has to work in one process. It has to be orchestrated for each decision that are being made. And we had to rebuild everything in Aera. So the question you could be asking me the same way you said, do you partner with the ETL? Do you partner with a DI platform? No, Aera is the DI platform. Aera is the agentic platform. Aera is the machine learning platform. You can bring your own algorithm. I mentioned Mars earlier. They had built their own optimization algorithm, but they brought it into Aera using Jupyter Notebook, and now they're running it in the platform for that full orchestration. So we're not saying my algorithm is better than your algorithm. We don't care. We say, look, there are several services that we already built for forecasting, for root cause analysis, because we understand the topic quite well. So we build those services in our Cortex, but you have your own algorithm, bring it on. What we'll provide is that entire flow and that level of engagement. So the system delivers those recommendations that are delivered with a confidence score. It will tell you, Aera will tell you, for this recommendation, my confidence that the outcome will be reached in a given time frame is 88% or 22%. And that drives the automation rules, right, logically. And then a decision is made either through automation or by engaging with the user.
Sure.
That decision is stored. So it's A/B testing. That's how we thought about it. How do we capture a decision? I deliver a recommendation. I'll let you react to it. That was the fundamental. We copied Google on 2 ways. The crawling concept, Google crawls the internet to enable, and then enable the search engine to work on top of the curated data model, and they keep it refreshed. We've done the same thing. And the A/B testing is really the fundamental approach. Now, of course, like you do a Google search today, the results are probably quite good. Over time, the quality of the decisions that Aera delivers are also pretty good. So you're mostly automating. An action gets taken, it gets memorized into the decision data model. So you have your transaction data, your external data, you've got your normalized data model, which is harmonized, curated with the right level of horizontal and vertical lineage. And then you've got your decision data. That's what the decision data model is. And then the process will write back into the ERPs for full execution. That's how the structured decision management works in Aera.
It is quite a breakthrough because people don't, we've had analytical tools for a long time, but we never really audit their accuracy. We don't consider what percentage are accepted by users or, like I say, another process. So we kind of assume we need them, but we don't know how accurate they are.
So what you just said, Vinnie, is not manifest itself in the control room, where I can monitor the data flows, what's happening to the data. I can monitor all my data science processes, my agents, my machine learning algorithms, how they're operating. So that's where in a control room, you have the data people, you have the data science people, you have the skill architects and the skill analysts who are analyzing the performance of this decision-making processes. You wish you could do that with when you have 2,000 planners or logisticians. You hope that they make the right decisions. Here, you monitor it in real time, and you can continuously adjust and improve. And that's what the function of the control room is. So the platform is called the Aera Decision Cloud, really designed to be SaaS self-service, as I explained. And it took us 7 years to pretty much get there. It's a long process. There's a lot of capabilities. I promise you, I'm not going to go through all of them. But really, what you find in the box starts with the crawlers, the ability to integrate with all these tools, the data workbench that helps populate the decision data model that's already in the system. Then a set of decision engines that really deliver the AutoML, the optimization, the auto forecasting, the ability to train the algorithms, to deploy it, to monitor their performance, all the way down to the rules engines and the calc engine, which is basically unapplied capabilities of multidimensional modeling on Aera. We've already developed all of that. The decision engagement, which is the inbox where you receive your recommendation and can take action, all the way to the voice and the chat that answers your questions and drive the configuration of the discovery, which you also can do manually if that's what you prefer. And of course, all the agentic capabilities. So as I said to you, we designed Aera as an agent from day one without the LLMs. And then we're super excited because now the LLMs allow us to take this entire platform and deliver more flexibility and more intelligence. It's not the intelligence, it's more intelligence. The ability to have really closed loop processes where an agent can detect something better than rules and learn from that. And then the control room on top.
Are you partnering with some LLM vendors, or is that something
Yeah. So, we work with big companies. They all have, I'm working with OpenAI, I'm working with Microsoft, I'm working with this one. In Aera, you choose the LLM. And by the way, not every LLM is created equal, and they don't all have the same cost. So for some types of work, you want to use a open source, cheaper version. For some others, so it's composable. So that drives me to the point about the platform.
Companies are going with large models and medium-sized models and now
Correct.
So on. So yeah.
This is an exciting part of our journey. We're dealing with some of the most advanced AI companies in the world, and I think we build, and that's a bit of luck. And I love luck. You need a bit of luck when you do what we do, because the agentic and the LLM capabilities have really enabled us to accept. We did everything that you expect an LLM to do without the LLM until now. We were using rules and hard work to actually have an agent that interacts with the users the way it does. So we didn't wait for LLMs to do the work, but it's really giving us flexibility.
And if you can go tell people, I will do with CPUs, you don't need GPUs, boy, right there is a big selling point.
I can't share too much about this, but these are conversations that we're having right now. there are some really interesting capabilities that NVIDIA, for example, is releasing with the QOps and the NIMs, and how do you leverage them? But you have to do it intelligently. Back to your questions earlier, is it only very complex decisions? No. Some decisions are basically heuristics and they run perfectly well on a CPU. Others, they're very advanced optimization capabilities. They need the GPUs to run. And that's really the point here about this slide. It's not so much all the different boxes, but it's what's on top. We designed this to be composable. Not all decisions are created equal. Not all of them require the same amount of power. The composability also talks to the fact that the way you make decisions evolves very fast. How many times at Aera we said, hey, we built a skill to manage shortages? A big topic of the day during COVID and after COVID, where companies were focusing on that. And then it evolved. The way their priorities have evolved toward now, I've got excess inventory. If I'm a big pharma company, I build too much, or oil and gas. So the type where you would direct your teams, the problems you want your teams to address evolve over time. The way you make and run this system evolves over time. The biggest challenge of Aera, and now the nut that we've tried to crack, is really, I talked about the engagement, and we have done a phenomenal job on that. The second is really, how do you bring unconstrained compute power to transaction? I've said for the many 20 years, it's very hard in the world of software to bring complexity, volume, and real time together. Most tools are good at 2 out of 3. I can be really good at volume and speed, but then don't bring complexity. I can do managing complexity and volume, but it's going to be slow. You know my point. We cracked that nut. We cracked that nut through this. And what you need when you remove the human from the decision-making process, you need the system to have that flexibility. While you need the system to be incredibly reliable and trusted, because you're empowering the system to make day-to-day business decisions. Scalability is key. I talked about it briefly, and comprehensive. And that's also, you asked me 2 very good questions. Are you partnering here? Are you partnering there? Well, no, not because we don't want to and we like to write code, even though that's what we like to do, but because this whole brain has to come together and every component has to be orchestrated and context aware. If I start pushing processes out, things tend to break and they're not flexible enough. I got to configure this. All of this system, everything that you see here is managed through a single workspace. I've got a single menu that allows me to change the way crawlers are working onto this instance of SAP, all the way to how I change the chart type on a specific screen. It's all happening in a single environment. And that's the magic of Aera. This is why we can do what we claim we do. So moving forward, because I know I'm speaking too much, you talked about use cases earlier. Where does it deploy? These are some examples. We got about 100 different types of skills that have been deployed today. And you see a very strong focus on operations, manufacturing, procurement, and of course, supply chain, but extending beyond that. And I talked about those 4 attributes. I'm just mindful of the time. So question that usually comes is, that sounds very complicated and very expensive, and it takes a lot of time. No, it does not. I'm talking the largest companies in the world. I'm talking the Exxons, the Dells, the Unilevers of the world. On average, taking a very objective look at it to prepare to build the DDM and deploy the first skill, an average is 4 months. Can be shorter, can be a bit longer, but that's what it takes. It's not 4 years. And then once you've got your decision data model connected, building and maintaining skills on top, it's a matter of weeks. I would say this slide says 4 to 8. I think 4 to 12, because if you're going to be processing a very complex algorithm, it might take a bit longer to fine tune, but that's to give you a sense. So customers build roadmaps and they deploy, dozens of skills, which is dozens of types of decisions that can be automated in the system. And what they see and the value gets measured. And what I like about this approach is I can really, without getting too deep, we map a decision-making and say, what's the level of accuracy? What's the frequency of refresh? What's the level of granularity today? What's the level of automation? And what is your coverage? That's the before. You deploy the skill. and you measure the after in real time. Say, look, the frequency went from once a month to once a day. The granularity, we were working at the product category. We're now deploying it at the SKU level. Is it relevant? What is the impact of doing that on my accuracy and on the quality of the decisions? So it's completely controlled. You deploy it and you're in control of the process. So I'll stop here. I know we probably talked a bit too much, but
No problem.
that
It is,
happens.
it, like you say, the concept of a decision, being able to measure that is a breakthrough. That's fantastic.
No, thank you. Yes, it was a giant leap of faith when we started navigating a bit in the dark and figuring things as we do. But we have a fantastic team, and we have been able to partner with amazing customers, and just so grateful for
Well,
their trust and partnership.
Fred, if you are a mystery fiction reader, I'll be
I
happy
am.
to give you this copy. It's got LLMs, it's got GPUs, it's got agentic AI and all that, but it's a mystery. So, and it's based,
Love it.
you're part of the world.
I want to read it. That's going to be my holiday read.
I will, we'll arrange for that.
Thank you.